I want to avoid the topic of sort of like generations. I don't like to speak sort of like generationally. It allows for like commonplaces and easy thought and vulgar thought. One must think outside of academia, because in academia is where thought dies. I will say like art especially is sort of like very brainy nowadays, right? It's almost like you need a degree in whatever, like continental philosophy or French, so-called French theory, to understand what's going on in the museums right now. The issue with contemporary art is not that it's necessarily bad. It's just it's too brainy. For it's sort of like a product for the consumption of its own guild, I will say. Same thing happens with poetry. It's a poetry produced for poets to read, and I think that's a sign of decadence. I think, and I'm not necessarily against the public. I'm against this image of the public that people have constructed as a sort of like to legitimate whatever trash is produced. So I'm not against the idea of the public per se. It's just I'm an idea of this like ideational construction of the public. That's what I'm against. Actually, being immoral makes your art good, right? Or even the possibility of an art might be found in immorality. And I wrote about Lovecraft, right? The way he engages sort of like this sort of like idea of the cosmic horror, the way he engages with the other. It's hard to not find sort of like a continuity between that and the way he hated minorities, right? So we have Lovecraft not in spite of his racism, but because he was racist, right?
Do you have a particular grievance when it comes to canceling?
I think the issue is the way they cancel people. I think you remember I had an experience, right? I think people should cancel more in that manner, rather than going into Twitter and typing or social media or journalists. I think people should put their words into action. I think that's what people should do more often. And I invite people to do that. And if they want to cancel me, I think they should cancel people in an appropriate manner.
Let me ask you about the event that happened approximately a month ago.
Wait, which event?
When a person ran up the stairs
of
the podium.
Yeah, I remember that.
And tried to approach you with a knife, and finally he was caught before he could do that. But the audience was obviously in shock, and you must have been horrified. What went through your head? What do you think about people who try to take your life?
It's fine. I think it's fine. I think it's sort of a sign of like youthful passion. Mm-hmm. I invite more journalists to take this approach towards me and my work, instead of just writing words. Mm-hmm. Words, no action. So I commend this young male. I believe he was 19, who took a stance. Who sort of like his opinion was through his action. And, I'm not opposed to it. I always invite for that. I always invite for demonstrations of youthful passion, as long as they're not like filtered through like deans and professors and like or administrative figures or bureaucrats. I for instance, my issue with book burning, right, or like this sort of like censorship. Like we don't have censorship anymore. We live in this censorship is sort of like a fact of life. There's an informal censorship. If you put a book of not even like complicated algebra, let's say like basic algebra in the streets, nobody will read it. That's censorship to a certain degree.
So if you were to organize a book burning, what kind of books would you burn?
All of them, just burn them. Wait. Oof. Yeah. This is like Peter Singer. This one.
You would burn Peter Singer.
We'll burn this one. Who else? Let me see. Is there like...
There's some Sartre.
That's fine. I like Sartre. Well, I don't know. This one for the title, I guess.
Ecofeminism. Can you show it to the camera?
Well, I think that sounds curious. I wouldn't burn this one necessarily. I think... I wonder if we have like...
There's a lot of continental philosophy.
What is the name of this guy? This guy.
Which one?
That's like pop philosopher who thinks we live in the best times possible. Progressive history.
Leibniz?
No. Oh my. No, that. God, no. It's sort of like this, like sort of like boring stats-based empirical philosophy of history that Yuval Novari and that type of crew, like there's one, it's not Peter Singer, it's like this, he has another, Pinker, that's his name, Pinker, no? I don't even remember. Well, that guy will go away, burn all of his books. I want to see what else.
So Jürgen Habermas, who you just mentioned, you would add his entire works to your book burning project. He actually mentioned you in his latest work on the history of philosophy, where he described you as an incel.
Yeah.
And what are your reactions?
I don't take seriously this sort of like new left social democratic liberal Kantian bullshit that he wants to do, There's no one to my left. I am woke. I am the woke.
Could you talk?
I joined the fight against communism on the side of communism.
Efficiency and progress is ours once more. Now that we have the neutron bomb, it's nice and quick and clean and get things done. Away with the sense and me, but known as valued a property. The sense and war, but perfect sense.
Well, it's well, the thing is to think against, war is both father, it's both father and king, Heraclitus, that's what he said. And I'm in that, and everyone, insofar as you're speaking against someone, everyone is a plebiscite, so.